Hiya, welcome to Gulf Breeze. What I've been asked to do is give basically make a documentary of what people see when they come to Gulf Breeze, besides just a UFO hotspot. From here, what we're going to do is go over the 3-mile bridge to the information centre and find out what the general reaction is to people who normally come and ask about UFOs. This is the Gulf Breeze sign. It's made of solid wood, painted gold. We are on Highway 98, as I said, and we are going to show you around Gulf Breeze of some of the areas, some of the nice beaches, and also interview some of the local people who've seen UFO sightings. We're going to meet up with the Mutual UFO Network team who go out on sky watches at night time, and with a bit of luck we'll probably even get to meet Ed Walters as well. Okay. Right, okay, we've just been into the Visitors Information Centre. They didn't want to be filmed, but they have helped us along with the information. We've been given a Pensacola map of the area, and on the back of it is a Gulf Breeze map. They're free, gives you the basic ideas of where you are, where you want to go, whatever. They've also gave us UFOs, the Gulf Coast's Greatest Mystery, which is the Mutual UFO Network leaflet, and there's a phone number on there which will be phoned in later on to meet up with the UFO team at Shoreline Park later on. Gives you a basic insight into the UFOs, a few of the photographs taken by the locals, a small area map as well. But this place is a must. If you're visiting Pensacola, you come over the 3-mile bridge, you take your first right exit and basically do a U-turn, and you've got the Visitors Information Centre right there. Very helpful staff, and that's all you're going to need. These are some of the lovely big houses that's in Pensacola. Here's another one. Really picturesque places. We'll be showing a few of these of some of the type of places that people live out here. What we're doing now is we're heading towards Shoreline Park. This is where one of Ed Walters' first sightings was, and this wooded area this is where the local Mutual UFO Network team come to skywatch most nights. At the bottom of it just opens up into concrete picnic tables, and this is where they bring the deck chairs and they sit on the beach at night time. Just waiting for the UFOs. This started several years ago, and it's been going on ever since. And what they look for is a little red light, sorry. And normally this turns out to be the UFO. But what they are familiar with is the aircraft activity in the area, so they know what they're looking for. Right, that box-like bridge We're on Shoreline Park at the moment. This is where the Skywatch team come to see the UFOs at night time. They sit on these concrete benches. And they've been the deck chairs and the camera equipment and all wait for the UFOs. The nighttime sightings have virtually finished now. The UFOs now appear at daytime, but we'll be here tonight to film this area, and this is to show you what it looks like in daytime. We're looking there in the distance at Bauxite Bridge, and that's Santa Rosa Island in the distance. There's the beach, Gulf Breeze. And this is the area where Ed Walters found himself when he gained consciousness in the water. He was halfway in the water with his legs hanging in the sea, and he was missing. The other information as well, the people around the estate, that what the people have been seeing is the water tower. What I want to show is if I go around the back, there is no water tower visible. Now there's one behind these trees which is not visible at all. So where people say there's a water tower, there is not. What the people see is a water tower. This is with the wildlife here. He's a big bird. Then you also have dragonfly. This is well known for its boating. People come here and unload the boats. Get a dip in the sea. And as you can follow the air in the distance, there's a jet going up. That's either the Naval Air Station or Pensacola. Airport. That dome in the background on the right, that was the area for UFO sighting, which was recorded in the island newspaper where UFO was sighted, and that's a globe which we'll have a close-up from that bit. The UFO was in the distance behind one of the local landmarks.
Well, we were driving to work at 20 to 11 on April the 28th, down a main street in Pensacola, and it's in an area where there are a lot of radio masts with flashing lights on, and I was driving along and I saw this blue little ball thing fly across the sky, and 15 sightings on it. I said to Ken, look at that, what is that, what is that, you know, I couldn't tell what it was, you know, because I was driving. By the time he could see it and find it, it was to the right of our car, and I was stopping the car and the man behind was blowing his horn and making me move, and then he saw the object hanging over the house that was at the side of us, and he can tell you what he saw from there.
Basically, my wife, you know, she said, Ken, look out the windshield, and there's something flying in front of the car, and when I looked up, I didn't see it at all. So she said, look to your right, and I looked to my right, and I had the car window down, and right above this house, as we were passing by it, approximately 50 feet away from us, was this ball. It was a white object about the size of a Volkswagen, okay? And it was the shape of a bubble, all right? Now, it was white. The light was really bright, and it was white, and it had a bluish tint to it. But it was a few feet above this house, and the house itself was still dark, so it was a self-illuminated object, but it wasn't illuminating any of the surrounding area.
And inside you could see like swirling.
Yeah, and it had a fluid. The ball had a fluidity to it, you know. like either gas or fluid, kind of swirling slowly in a counterclockwise.
I said it looks like the inside of a marble. You know, when you look up close at a marble, that kind of like swirling.
If it was,
you know.
I think it wasn't producing any sound, but our car was on. So if it was making a sound, it was no louder than our car itself. There were some pine trees behind the house that weren't swaying in any way, so I would assume it wasn't making any wind either. and there was a small, much smaller object. I can't, maybe a golf ball size or a softball size, lit object. It was real bright.
Cricket ball,
Cricket ball, cricket ball size. Okay. Yeah. You know what a Volkswagen is, right? Or a mini. A mini. It was a mini. That's right. It was the size of a mini. But this object was kind of orbiting around the main object. This object was very bright itself, and I guess we saw it for about a minute and a half, and we couldn't pull over to the side of the road because the side of the road was elevated, and we would have had to hit the curb. So.
Big curb, yeah.
So it was swamp gas, yeah.
Swamp gas.
So I said to my wife to stop at the red light, but the light was green. So by the time we were able to turn around, it was about a minute and a half or 2 minutes before we were able to turn around. When we came back, it was gone. It was gone. So our sighting was about a minute and a half, and it was approximately 50 feet away.
Before filming this scene, Carol and I just had a 30-minute chat with Ed Walters. That is a separate video on my YouTube channel. Anyway, we are on Santa Rosa Island across from Shoreline Park at Gulf Breeze. I'm panning right and describing the area, and when I get to what the locals call Bob Sykes Bridge, which is actually called Pensacola Beach Road, I didn't realise I was about to film and photograph a UFO in daylight. So, how come I missed filming this UFO, or say didn't see it? The fact is, video cameras were different back then. You had to look through a long viewfinder, and at the end of the viewfinder was a small little screen, black and white screen, about 12 by 15 millimeters square. Above me I got blazing sunshine, below me I got pure white sand, and I was being blinded from both angles. And looking through the black and white viewfinder, it's easy to miss a pure white object in the distance, even at that small size. I carried on filming, and once I'd finished filming, I put the video camera down. I picked up my still camera, 35mm film still camera, and took a photograph looking in the general area. It was about 6 months later when I realised what was on the video, and I checked the photograph, and on the video and the photograph you can see the UFO I filmed on the 6th of October 1994. This is a freeze frame of what you'll be looking at, and I'm going to play the whole video from the very start to where it crosses over to the other side of Santa Rosa Island. Look out for the white sphere which sits spinning in the sky in one spot on the other side of Bob Sykes Bridge.
What we're looking at right now is we're on Santa Rosa Island, looking across one of the bays, Santa Rosa Sand is its name, and there in the distance is called Breeze. I'm also going to show you the island at the back of the distance and some of the wildlife. Here we have in the distance called trees. Behind all them trees is where the people live. That is the beginning of Shoreline Park. The white sand. The water tower in the distance. Now that water tower in the distance has also been classed that people have been seeing UFOs, and that is what people claim that's what they've seen, the water tower. Now that water tower, that beach, cannot be seen too far back, the trees hide it. There's no way that is what people have seen. That there in the distance is Shoreline Park. That little foot thing there is the toilet block, and that is where the regular seen Skywatch. They look over this way for the UFOs. Ed Walters lives on a strip of land without filming for, and the area that you're looking at now is the source of the UFO sighting. Now, Ed Walters filmed a UFO on video from this side of the Santa Santa Rosa Sand, and that block on the right hand side of the screen is the film a UFO hovering above the water, sucking up a stream of water out of the sea there. So that is the local area where people go and skywatch. As we'll work his way down past the trees, we will come to the bridge. Here comes the bridge. Now this bridge, it's not the 3 Mile Bridge, but it's called Bob Sykes Bridge. It's a toll bridge, you don't pay to go this way. And it's a pretty big bridge, but that is the bridge that brings you over onto this sand. Now somewhere down there, Ed Walters lives. And what I'm going to show you is the whitest beaches you'll probably ever see if you ever do this cruise. And what we're going to do is we are going over there. Now, if you go down the bridge, if you go over the bridge and veer left and follow the road round, you'll come to the hotels. But if you turn right, once you pass the hotels after about a mile, you'll come to these little shacks. Now under these shacks you have seating, there's also a public toilet. And just beyond that beach is one of the deserted beaches because it is out of the way, and that is where you'll find one of the most secluded and whitest beaches you will ever come across. Let's go and take a look. Well, there's the parking lot that I filmed. We are now on the Gulf Breeze coast. The hotels are down there in the background. And as you can see, this is a pretty deserted beach. It is actually this white. Very, very white. To be on this beach, you really need some better. Now what I'm going to do is turn around and look at the other side of the beach. Now this is the beach where around this time, October, maybe in a week or two, if you come down here at night time, you'll see little turtles coming out of the sand and heading towards the sea. These are the beaches that we want to come, the sand dunes. But this is a really bright beach. And it's like sugar, it's known as the sugar white beaches. It's so soft. There's no pebbles in here at all. The sea is pretty warm. You can put a dive straight in there. As I mentioned early on in this tape, this is what the skeptics believe is the actual UFO issue of Gulf Breeze. Now this is actually in fact a large beach ball supported on something like a massive golf tee. To give you some size of this. That is really precise. But people say that this is actually the UFO. There's a few of these scattered on Santa Rosa Island, and the UFOs have been sighted away from these as well. So the skeptic's case really don't hold water. We're in the Islander newspaper office here in Pensacola Beach, and we're going to talk about the Islander with the publisher Jane Waters. about the Islander and the connection between the UFOs and the stories that go in there. Jane, you are the publisher of the Islander.
Yes.
And you now publish a lot of the stories of UFOs.
We do.
I think the biggest one that you published so far was on the front page of the Islander this year,
I think so.
where
Yes.
Ed Walters had taken two photographs of UFOs being intercepted by a jet.
Mhm.
How long have you been running the UFO subject?
I guess it's about 3 years now.
About 3 years.
Mhm.
And how did that come about?
Well, when the Sentinel, which was the Gulf Breeze newspaper, was a weekly newspaper similar to mine, was sold and no longer became an independent newspaper, the Gannett Corporation decided that they would not publish this kind of story, and I consider it newsworthy, so I inherited it. They asked, the UFO people asked me if I'd do it, and I said yes, as long as it's credible. And we believe that everything that we have put in our paper has a good basis and is justified.
Yeah. What is the circulation of the
We have now about 3,500
3,500? So
all over the world.
all over the world. Oh right. So the news about the Gulf Breeze sightings does get around.
Right,
Through
and
your
that's one of the primary reasons that we have so many people. Like we have someone in Sweden, and I think we have someone in Japan, and this kind of thing. They want to read the UFO stories. Other than that, it's tourists who come here. They read the Islander, and then they'll subscribe to it when they go home. But that's why we have more of a worldwide circulation than the average little independent weekly newspaper has.
Yeah. And the subscription for abroad is.
Well, that varies.
It varies
You know,
depending on which
from
country it is.
Canada to England to Sweden to we never know. We have to check with the post office
Yeah.
to find that out.
So if anybody wants to subscribe to the Islander, we'll be putting the subscription form at the end of this video.
I'm Ray Pollock, and what I do is optical and electron imaging. I'm a specialist in image analysis and image manipulation. Work for Monsanto Company, have been working for them now around 40 years. And I have done image analysis on some of the pictures that Ed Walters, not his original pictures, but pictures that people have sent him,
Yeah.
to try and determine if in fact they're genuine or if they have been faked. And at this point in time, we have not encountered any which had actually been faked. They were all genuine. And it's quite interesting. We have been present at Shoreline for a number of sightings, well over 100,
Yeah.
and have seen the craft itself rather than just the lights that most people get to see. And you could actually see the portholes and everything. And it was fascinating because we saw it back in 1988, right after Ed's initial encounters in 1987.
Can you remember your first sighting?
Oh, my first sighting when I was in 1940 when I was 9 years old. And it was a long cigar-shaped craft. It had portholes that went completely around it, and I've often, in retrospect, I've often thought of it as maybe a tour bus for Earth. And it was very low, probably not over 50, 60 feet off the ground, and it went by at a very close range, and my mother and my father and my younger brother and I all witnessed it. And it was over 300 feet long because our garden was 300 feet long, and it hung over both ends as it went by. And probably the most peculiar thing is the fact that there was music coming from it. There were no sounds other than that, but they were playing music. I guess you would categorize as semi-classical. And at that time, of course, we'd never heard of synthesizers and things, but in retrospect, it sounded very much like what we would call a synthesized piano nowadays. And we watched it move slowly across the farm and watched it out of sight. And it was really interesting because I was a model airplane buff and had read all the aviation magazines and everything, and I knew this wasn't one of those.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk about it, but my mother and father would never mention it again. And
So from there, in the mid-40s, that was your first sighting.
right.
Is there a large gap between that and the Gulf Breeze sightings, or have you seen things in between?
There's a pretty large gap. Now, for some reason, unknown to me, I developed an interest in the UFOs along about the time that Carol Lorenzen and them came out with books. They'd had the sightings in South America and so forth. And for a period, I read everything I get my hands on. And then it started waning again. And then when we began to read the articles about the Gulf Breeze sightings and so forth,
Yeah.
My daughter and her husband were home, and they said, well, let's go over there to Gulf Breeze and see if we can shoot one of this. It was really sort of a joking sort of thing. And lo and behold, that was the night that we got to see the craft over the park.
Was it night time?
Yes, it was. It was about almost 10 o'clock at night. But there was actually illumination, and you could actually see lights, the light glow reflecting off of the bottom of the craft. Although it had a sort of a self-luminous appearance of its own. It was there for about 2 minutes. At the time that we were there, there were a lot of little small planes flying around, and they had all gone off somewhere else. And my daughter and her husband and I were out on the end of the pier looking back toward Gulf Breeze. And she says, my daughter started hollering, says, there it is. And she had seen it, and she said it just popped in. And so we watched it for about 90 seconds to 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And at that time, the little planes started coming back from wherever they'd been, and it was gone just like that. We have on video pictures of craft that actually leave at very high speeds. We did not see this one leave. It was just gone.
So you've been going out to go Gulf Breeze, Shoreline Park for how long? Several years.
We really got started after the UFO conference here in 1990. And up to that point, we did not know that there was actually a group that went out to look for UFOs. We were out almost every night from early '91 and till July. Well, we were out there actually beyond that, but we had a lot of sightings during that period. As I said, we'd had over 100, and there are, I don't know what the total number of sightings that we have on record, but it's close to 200. And at that time, we were going every night that we possibly could. And we still do, even though the sightings have abated, primarily because of visitors that come and want to tell their experiences and want to know the Gulf Breeze story, what's going on. And so consequently, we go out there every night that we can, just to be available.
So all the UFO sightings at the moment, or the majority of them, when they're there, they're daytime sightings now. Like they've virtually switched from nighttime sightings to daytime.
Yes, they have. We've had a few, just recently, a few nighttime sightings. We thought we had a little flap going, and but It lasted 3 different nights, and then it was gone. And the sightings, there have been a large number of daytime sightings actually since the 1st of January of this year. And Ed Walters has photographed some of these. Other people have photographed some, and several people have reported seeing, even though they didn't photograph them, they reported seeing disc-shaped objects anywhere from 1 to a maximum of about 4 at the same time. Yeah. And that seems to still periodically be going on.
Have you seen any of the daytime sightings there in Gulf Breeze?
I have not been personally witnessed any of the daytime sightings. My wife's had a daytime sighting in 1949, yeah. But that followed them all the way to Miami, Florida, from about mid-Florida. But I have not, except for the one I saw when I was 9 years old, I have not had a daytime sighting.
From the daytime photographs, or even some of the nighttime photographs that's been analysed, can you tell how many different craft are visiting the area?
Well, different people that we have talked to, and the reports that we've taken and the descriptions. We have a book which has some of the different type craft in them, and there have been probably a half a dozen different types of craft identified as having been seen in this area. The most prevalent, of course, is the type that Ed Walters photographed, but there have been other types, including the boxcar or rectangular type craft.
What about abductions? There's been people abducted and given marks on the back of their hands.
Right. We had a little period a couple of years ago when that was happening quite frequently, that people were being abducted and marked. And one, of course, the most prominent that we've had was a fellow was marked on the back of his hand. But others were marked either on their inner arms or, in several cases, ladies were marked on their back or lower buttocks. And with a seven-point circle with a dot in the middle. In at least one other case, we had a young lady who was marked with the radiological symbol. Yeah. The three little triangles, like. And this seemed to go on for about about 5-6 months. And now, in most cases, the marks that have been found were just little dots, usually a triangle. In several cases, they may not have marks at all, but they will have unexplained bruises and so forth, particularly on their ankles and maybe on the forearm here. Apparently they resisted the abduction, and they get bruised in the process.
Have you seen any of the craft while being out on the sky watches where they either beam down a blue beam or something leaves the object and flies elsewhere?
Well, I have seen them release objects from the craft. I have not witnessed a blue beam. We had one of the recent sightings about 3 weeks ago. I didn't see it, but some of those that did said they witnessed a blue beam from the craft itself. And it was interestingly in the vicinity of Mr. Walters' home. He doesn't claim to have been abducted or anything during that period, but that's what we saw.
Because on Shoreline Park as well, on the opposite bank from Ed Walters' home, on Shoreline Park, he's recently videoed a craft sucking up water.
Right. There is a videotape where they actually had a little vortex of, like a whirlwind of water being sucked, appeared to be sucked up into the craft. And we have had sightings where the craft, there is a video that exists of craft coming in and out of the water.
Alright, great.
Well, we're on Shoreline Park, and we have with us,
Judy Francor.
and you saw something rather strange here one night.
Yes, we did. It was 7th, 15th, and 92. It was around 1 o'clock in the morning. My sister and I were both out here, and it just popped in. It was tall. It was right by the Ryan spout. It was taller than the Ryan spout, and maybe just about as wide. It was like a rectangle, a door opening, and to me it looked like it was opening to another dimension because it was real blue, like sky blue on the other side. And it lasted maybe about 4 to 5 seconds, or maybe a little bit more than that. And then all of a sudden it started closing from the bottom up, and it just disappeared.
How did this door open?
It just started coming down from the top, just coming down like that, just like a curtain being pulled down.
Yeah.
And then when it closed up, it just whoop, like the curtain flew up real fast, a shade or something, you know.
Yeah.
And the sky the stars up there didn't look right that night, except for the Ryan. They just didn't seem right. And we all had the feeling that something was going to happen. It was very still and very heavy, and you could feel like there was something. You felt like something was looking at you. And I don't know. I get these feelings quite often, and usually when I get those feelings, something does happen.
Yeah.
And
did you see anything come out the door?
no, we didn't. I tell you, it was so large that I don't think all 747s and these great big buses could fit in there. You know, would be enough buses or planes to put in there to fill that hole up. It was that big.
Was there any sound?
No, it wasn't. Just nothing. I looked around to see if maybe we were having these floodlights flashing around, but there was nothing. There was nothing. It was just still, dead out here. No lights, nothing.
So was this door rectangle upwards?
Yes.
So it was not. It was upwards.
It was, I guess it sort of like leaned back a little bit, you know, and
Yeah.
just a little bit, but it still had that rectangle shape.
How long have you been coming to Shoreline Park?
Since April of 92.
So chances are you've seen something here.
Oh,
With
yes.
UFOs.
Yes, I have. I've seen one when I was a little girl,
Yeah.
and I've seen some since then. I've even had a daylight sighting.
What, in Gulf Breeze?
Well, it's in town, but it was out over the Gulf here.
Yeah.
I was high up.
Oh, it's in
You could
this
see.
area?
Yes,
Yeah.
and I saw a disc shape with like a globe on the top of it. It was quite big from where I was, about like that. And it just turned over one way, and they turned back over and just bleeped out. And just about that time, it was a big old jet, one of those Navy jets came over.
Yeah.
So, sort of like what Ed Walters had happened to him, but and I had told him about it before. He showed his pictures, so.
Do you remember your first sighting here?
Yeah.
Pretty exciting, was it?
Yes, it was, because if my car didn't have it in gear, I think I would have run a red light.
Oh, right. So,
It was very exciting. It was last November that I saw that.
yeah.
You know, we've seen quite a few out here.
So, I mean, we're meeting people that's come. I mean, there's a chap over there that's come from Texas.
Yes.
And last night there was a couple that was passing through on the way back down to Miami.
Yeah.
I believe I mean, even we're from England, I believe you get all different kinds of people
Oh,
coming
yes,
there.
I've
They've heard of the Gulf Breeze sightings.
I've met, I don't know how many people from all over the world over here. From Japan, Australia. Well, we met other people from England and Germany, Russia.
Russia?
So, yeah.
Ah.
So you really meet different people,
Yeah.
and they're all here. There's a reason I feel like we're all here.
Now, in some places that we visit, there's also a lot of people that turn around and say the people are seeing the water towers or jets shimmering in the sky.
Mhm.
What would you say to those people? Besides of obviously not being here and seeing what you're seeing.
What do I have to say to Oh Lord. I guess it's seeing is believing. I mean, you got to see it to really get to know what's there.
Yeah.
And to explain it to you, it's very. I can't really explain how I feel.
Yeah. Well, feelings are very hard things to
Yes,
explain.
but when
anyway.
somebody sees something and somebody else has never seen anything and they come to see it, they sit there. I have seen them stand there with their mouth open and says, I don't believe it, but I believe it.
Yeah. Well, we've seen some TV clips which Bruce Morrison has filmed, which went out on some of the news networks through America. And during the sightings, you can hear people in the background so excited.
Oh yes,
So,
I've got some shots too.
This seems to
Little red
be.
light.
Have you?
Yeah.
This seems to be the place if you want to see a UFO. This is the place to be.
It takes time. You got to have a lot of patience.
Yeah.
Because I'm out here almost every night. If there's some reason I'm out of town usually, and I'm always looking when I'm out of town too.
All right.
But you're looking constantly looking up in the sky. I know on the way back we were up in Charleston this past week, and on the way back I was constantly looking up the sky.
We've been like that for the last 3 nights.
No, you never know.
Yeah. It's just happened to be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is the scene of one of the typical sky watchers at Shoreline Park. This is seen most night times. The people came out here, come out here, sit and wait for the UFO.
Right, at the moment we have a gentleman called Forrest Hopkins, and is this your first time to Gulf Breeze?
First time.
So, what do you expect to see?
Given the percentages of things that seem to happen, I didn't necessarily expect to see anything, but I was hoping to see a sighting. I've never had a sighting of any kind. I've been interested in this whole area for many years. Read a lot of books. Had read the book that Ed Walters had put out about 89, I guess, or something like that. And we had actually called him up a couple of years ago and gotten the little videotape that he put out. That's all I knew about Gulf Breeze itself.
And that's pulled you hard enough to visit the place?
Yes, in fact, it's interesting. I'm a year late. We had actually planned last summer to take a vacation just to this spot. That was my whole vacation. I hadn't had a vacation for a couple of years, so it was pretty important. And we ended up doing something else, but we always kept that in the back of our minds. And this vacation, we've done some other visiting around here, but we definitely wanted to come back to Gulf Breeze.
Yeah. So this is your third night?
This is the third night here.
And your last night?
And my last night for now.
No, but you were coming back.
I suspect we'll come back.
Have you met interesting people?
Very interesting people.
A lot of new stories?
Not just the interviewer, but other interesting people.
I didn't mean me. But, I mean, there's a lot of interesting stories that's being told.
A lot, and by a variety of people. I mean, and very credible people in my mind, just from talking to them. I mean, I'm at least maybe an average judge of people. My own background is that I'm a physicist. I've got a doctorate in experimental nuclear physics.
Right.
So I'm used to the experimental method. I've done that a lot in my life. That's how I've made my living.
Yeah.
And the people I've met here, a lot of them, I think, are very careful about what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's a very serious thing. Although I've really enjoyed just being here with the people.
Yeah. They're very friendly.
Very friendly.
And there was a couple that turned up last night. I think you'd gone by then, but they came in from something. They were driving through New Orleans. They've been meaning to come to Gulf Breeze for 5 years.
Oh, I was here.
You was here, was
Fort
you?
Myer.
Well, yeah,
They're from Fort Myer.
Yeah, they was working their way back down home, but they stopped just for last night, just to pass through. Something they wanted to do for 5 years. And they, as you know, they came down and they introduced themselves, and it's so friendly. Everybody just wants to just talk and share their experiences.
And yeah, it appears just from being here 3 nights, and I'm not an expert in that short time, that there is a core group.
Yeah.
And from talking to the folks here, there's a core group of about 15 people, and then there are others who come a lesser amount of the time. But that core group is here a lot of the time. A lot of the time. Some people here, since it sounds like since August, have been here almost every day.
Yeah. Well, there's Bruce Morrison here. He's sitting at one of the tables, and he was one of the first ones to start this sky watching. I think it was in 1988, and he's been here most nights since then. And he's took a load of video recordings of sightings of UFOs.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see him get those out. He's talking about releasing those as something that people can obtain.
Yeah.
I'd be real interested in that.
Yeah. So he's also has asked us also to market them for the English market as well. So hopefully, if that goes ahead, we should be helping Bruce spread the word of Gulf Breeze video, like Ed Walter's done with his books.
Right, right. In fact, until I came by here, I didn't realize that there was a second book out by Walters. A book called Abduction. I haven't read that yet.
It's a good book.
But we'll be getting that. I mean, as I said, I've never had a sighting. I have been around some extrasensory perception type events. Yeah. I mean, I'm convinced things go on that are not at all explained by the laws of physics as we know them, chemistry and so forth. And there's the whole area of abductees, which is really interesting to me.
Yeah. Well, the majority of it is interesting.
Yes.
It all seems to fit somewhere in that wheel.
Yes, it's just once you open up, you know, your mind to something that's extraordinary, then there aren't really any limits. You just look for it to be defined somehow by your own experiences at that point.
Well, I hope while you're here on your last night, we have a sighting.
I'm still watching.
We're still watching. Thank you, Forrest.
Sure.
Thank you. With me at the moment we have Bruce Morrison, and you're pretty famous around here now. Well, it depends which side you see it from. But you've been coming here since, well, the early days of the Gulf Breeze sightings.
Yeah, we got interested in it as soon as we found out who Ed Walters was.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we didn't know who he was. We knew there was something going on, and there was someone in the area that was being visited by alien beings or flying saucers at the time. And we all started coming over here looking to see what we could see. And then we found out who Ed was, and we met him, and one thing led to another, and here we are.
Because you and your wife was the first people really to start the Skywatchers.
Yeah, we started it back in April of 1990. One day I was out at a local shopping mall with the local UFO group. We had a booth set up there talking to people. Yeah. And it was right in front of a bookstore where Ed and Francis were signing their book. And I got ready to leave, and I walked over to tell them I was going, and Ed sat back and he says, you know, we've been seeing this strange red light in the skies around Gulf Breeze, and I'm going down to the foot of the bridge tonight to see if I can see anything. And I said, we'll be there. So I told Ann, and she made a couple of phone calls, and we had about 15 people out there that night. And sure enough, we had a sighting, and that did it. We were there, and
so the first time you was out here,
first time we went out, we had a sighting, and fortunately...
That's like winning the lottery.
Yeah, I wish. But we were lucky that night. Got a sighting? Let me see your binoculars.
We might just have a sighting, but I'm going to film this anyway. Move this thing. I can't see it just yet, but... That's the one just sitting there?
That car just went by.
Yeah.
And blacked out car lights went out as it went behind it.
Now this is on manual focus. Can you tell us what's over there, Bruce?
It looks to me like it's the light on the top of a sailboat mast. But from this vantage point, I can't see a boat. But I'm not saying there isn't one there. I've seen a lot of sailboats out there at night with their mast light on, and well, it's just a light. It doesn't look.
Well, it's not moving at all.
Not moving, and it looks like a normal light. See, the boat could be around the point there, or behind it. From what I can see right here, I think it's behind the boathouse. And it's not moving. I don't know what it is.
It's hard to keep the binoculars still, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I usually find a tree or something to hold them against too.
There's something going below it now.
Yeah, seeing it, boom, it goes out. Well, no, it didn't. There's not supposed to be a light there. Now that could be the mast light of a boat out in the Gulf.
Because another car's heading towards this. So if that's the road where that car is, do you think that's a bit high for a boat?
There could be a boat there. They anchor all over out there. They pass through here. This is the intercoastal waterway, and it runs around the country, and these boats come through here a lot. We see yachts and everything coming through here, tugboats, barges. And at night when they're ready to go to sleep, they pull into a cove somewhere, drop anchor, and leave their mast light on and go to sleep. So it could be.
Right.
I'll tell you what, Bruce, what we could do is we could leave this in frame
And just continue our
and continue with the interview.
That's right.
So if you want to...
That's fine with me. Something might happen.
Yeah.
Here comes the rest of the group. What do you think it is?
Do you want to walk round in front of the camera?
No, let's leave it on there. Maybe it'll take off in a minute or something.
Well, I've put it...
I don't think it's anything more than a boat. My back is to the light, and if it takes off, I'll miss it.
I'm probably not even in frame here. Yeah, we were saying that you was one of the original crew to start this.
We started this whole mess.
Yeah.
And it just mushroomed, and it really didn't get the nightly forays out here. It didn't really start until November 25th of '90, when we had another real good sighting that night, and from then on it was like something snapped and everybody started coming out every night.
Yeah. But I mean, you've had some celebrities out there as well. I mean, we've heard rumours that Steven Spielberg's been out here. Is that correct? That's not
Steven
true.
Spielberg has never been out.
Isn't it? Oh, right.
Who was it? The actress. She was in Top Gun. What was her name? Not Cindy. Huh? I can't think of her name. The actress who was in Top Gun, the lover of Tom Cruise in Top Gun. She's been down.
She's been down there.
Yeah. They were down in east of here about 50 miles shooting a movie, and she has an interest in them. And one night she came up with her camera crew, and they sat out with us.
Did they ever sight him?
If I recall, I don't think so.
No. But we also get a lot of researchers out here, like Bob Exler.
Oh, we've had a tremendous amount of researchers out here. We've had physicists from Canada and California come out, and we've had some action when they were around, and they picked up very unusual activity on a microwave radiation disk they had. And that night we had what we call a Tinkerbell little thing. It looked like Tinkerbell, a little round light that came right down through the middle of the group and set their equipment off crazy. And they wrote a paper on it. I think Ann has a copy of it. I haven't read it. I heard it was so technical that you wouldn't understand it anyway unless you were a physicist. But it was what came through the crowd that night should not have set these recording instruments off like it did, because it was something highly unusual. It was very close to all of us. It was about 10 feet from me.
Was there any noise from this one? Was there any noise from
No,
this?
no noise, no anything. It just blinked right through the group at about 10 feet off the ground. It was a green thing about, I don't know, about the size of a ping pong ball.
Ah. How many sightings have you had? You've had well over 100 sightings, haven't you?
I've had over 200.
Over 200 sightings, and you've recorded a fair amount on video as well.
Probably 160 to 170 up on video.
160 to 170. What's the average time limit for, or the average duration of a sighting in Gulf Breeze?
I would estimate 3 to 4 minutes.
3 to 4 minutes.
Yeah, the longest one was 9 minutes, and if they're much shorter than a minute, you don't have time to get them in the camera and get them focused and everything, because it does take time when you're shooting with telephoto lens at night. It's like trying to find it with a pea shooter.
Yeah.
You really have to aim and re-aim and do a lot of cursing and fussing, and finally you get it in. So it has to stay on longer than a minute.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have had sightings where a couple where I never got it in there, and it was up there long enough. I don't know if it was me, the camera, or maybe the UFO didn't want me to get it that night, but I never got it in there. And I've had other people out here with cameras that they never could get. I've had professional camera crews with us that couldn't get it in. It's really strange. And some nights it'll pop in and you just aim right at it, and boom, there it is, and you're shooting. But then other nights it's almost like it plays a game with you.
Yeah. There's also been a lot of experimenting with how to take photographs of UFOs, different lenses. I mean, you've really had the opportunities to study the best ways to photograph UFOs in this area.
Well, there's really no best way. It's I have found that on my video camera I've got an extender and a telephoto lens where I'm shooting the equivalent of 1600 millimeters, and it doesn't look any different with that than with normal lens. It doesn't look any different in the camera at 2,500 feet than it does at 5 miles. It's almost like an optical illusion when it happens. It's we know it's there and it's up there, and we have triangulated before and found out that it, one night we know it was 2.5 miles, and another time it was 7 miles, and then one night it was 26 miles, and it didn't look any different.
You've also had some of the sightings have been pretty spectacular, where they drop or split in two and something comes down or even goes up.
Yeah, they shoot things out. Sometimes they'll split in two. One night that was up there and it went out, and when it came back on, it was in the exact same spot where it had been 20 minutes previously. And because we know this, because we had these little devices that we use to measure or to triangulate with, and we had them set up, and they are little 1-inch tubes that we aim at the craft for the light, and we had 2 of them, and we knew how far they were apart, so we'd aim them at it, and then we'd take the measurements and everything, angle, elevation, azimuth, and all that, and then we were able to she can get by there. Can you get by? We can move it.
Yep. Catch it.
But anyway, that night we had it set up, and it was up there, and nobody had moved the instruments.
Yeah.
And when it came back in, the people working the instruments went back down, and as they squatted down to look, they looked in the instruments, and it was right there.
So
like
in the
it to-
exact same spot. And I asked a helicopter pilot who happened to be there that night, I says, can you fly your chopper around up there at night and stop it, hover it, and let me take a picture of you and let my camera stay in the same position, and you fly off and come back in 20 minutes and put your chopper in that same spot where I don't have to move my camera? He says, no. He says, I can come within 30 feet, but that's all.
Yeah.
He could not guarantee it.
So the chances are it was cloaking itself. Or,
Could have been.
or-
It could have stayed there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine, they're very high technology, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You never know.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you. Hi, with me I've got Anne Morrison, and while we was filming your husband Bruce, we figured that you figured that the object in the background was probably a boat. You saw it go round the back there, behind the trees.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that wasn't a UFO. It's now been identified.
It was rather low
Yeah.
to be a UFO.
So what's the average height of a UFO once? I mean, do they come directly above?
In
or?
all our I kept all the records when we had the sightings over the period of 2 years.
Yeah.
And we recorded 175 sightings of the red light.
Yeah.
The average height was between 4,000 and 5,000 feet.
Yeah.
We were able to triangulate 10 to 15 of the sightings, and that's how we were able to come up with an actual height and elevation for it. So it came over our heads a couple of times, directly over our heads, but even on those, it was still 4,000 feet up.
Yeah. Did you see any details on these when they came over? The power ring or anything?
No. The one night when it came over our heads here at the park, it was so bright you could not distinguish anything. It looked almost like a fireball. In fact, the description of it, what was so exciting about it, you've read the Pentwaters case.
Yes.
And when they describe the red light coming through the trees
Yeah.
and stopping and the sparks jumping out everywhere or falling out of it,
Yeah.
that was exactly what we saw. It was one of the most exciting things I've ever seen. And it stopped and hovered. Actually, it was right there. Right there. Right above that light.
So it was
And
just on the entrance to the park?
Yeah, just exactly. It came from the east, showed up just at the end of the bridge, came up the shoreline, crossed over the parking lot here behind us. We were right here. We watched it up like that, and it came right over there, stopped right up there, shot out all these sparks, and then turned a brilliant white, just a huge, brilliant white light, and then shrank back down to a pale red light, almost faded out, and then slowly faded off.
And
it was incredible.
No sound at all?
No sound.
No sound at all.
And could not, well, I never did, I don't think I did. I don't think I really looked at it with binoculars that night. We were so surprised to have it so close, right over our heads. There were only about 6 or 8 of us here at the park. Bruce was filming it with the camera and could not, he had it on the tripod, couldn't get it off the tripod, so he was holding the whole thing upside down trying to catch it. And I don't think I ever looked at it with the binoculars. I just didn't even think about it. It was so close and so brilliant. I have seen through my binoculars an indication of a structure around it, but not anything I could draw. So if you can't draw it, you can't really come up with an exact description of what it is. There is something there, but I don't know what.
Sounds like a fascinating sighting.
In fact,
I mean, we've seen video where these objects kind of flare up into a white ball of light and kind of spin. Is that what it looks like with the eye, or is that a part of the camera effect?
It's more probably a part of the camera effect, because when it flares up into this brilliant white light, it's more like a strobing, but it's so fast. It's faster than disco strobing. It's very different. It's not at all the same. And it's usually about 10 times larger than the red light. Then it flares into the white.
Yeah.
And frequently, almost always, was fringed with green. It was really beautiful. And we were able to photograph this one night with an infrared camera, and it showed the same thing. When the red light showed up, of course, on a black and white infrared film as just a white light, and then when it flared up into the big white light, it was much, much, much larger, and accordingly much more intense heat, probably. I think it's the power source, frankly.
Yeah.
But, you know, that was our final, I mean, that's what we all think it probably is. The power source on the craft similar to what Ed photographed.
There's also been landings in the school field, the Gulf Breeze High School
Right.
field.
Yeah.
And there's also been somewhere in some woods. There was landing sites.
Right down here.
Just down the beach here.
Down the beach. Mm-hmm. About 1,500 feet maybe. It's a long walk down to where it was, but it was an exact circle that was the exact same size as they figured the craft that it photographed was at the bottom. I think it was 14 feet. So I've recently, an interesting anecdote. Now that I'm working in Gulf Breeze, I had a little ulterior motive, of course, in taking a job in Gulf Breeze, was hoping to meet some people who'd lived here for a while and see what they had seen.
Yeah.
Because not everyone reports their UFO sightings. So I am working with a woman who I asked her if she'd ever seen any strange lights in the sky, and she said, yeah, she'd seen a few things, but nothing very close. She said, but my brother was driving home from work one night from Pensacola and saw a UFO hovering over the Gulf Breeze High School, just over the grass. And she said the next day there was an article in the paper about the circle in the grass. Now, he never reported that sighting. But she said, well, I said, well, what did it look like? And she said, it was a silver, kind of a bell-shaped object with lights on and a red bottom, red on the bottom.
And that's the circle that's in that voltage.
Right.
And that was there for 18 months, and then sticks underneath the soil.
Right.
We've learned tonight that on Santa Rosa Island, just over the bay there's a house built the same as a UFO.
Yes, it's been here for 15 or 20 years.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to have a look at we're going to have a look at that in a bit. So we're going to see what the hell that looks like.
Before we knew about the UFOs here.
Is it anything like the Gulf Breeze UFOs, or is it just typical saucer?
No, it's just looks just like your typical saucer with windows around, sitting on a pedestal.
Oh, well, we're going to have a look at this. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So we say goodnight to everyone as we are leaving tomorrow. We have 2 more locations to see, and then it's a 450-mile drive down to Orlando. And there we have it, many witnesses giving their own UFO experiences around Gulf Breeze. It's easy to say it's all fake, but you really have to get out here and speak to the witnesses. From 1989 onwards, thousands of people from all over the world have visited Gulf Breeze.
This is the house that Anne Morrison was telling us about. From this angle it looks like there's 2 portholes around the front, and we're going to go around and have a look at this. There's the UFO house. It was built over 25 years ago on Santa Rosa Island. And it seems strange that this thing sits there in the sightings of all the Gulf Breeze UFOs. Well, for the last stop on this little tour, We're on Sandside Drive and we're going to have a look at the area where Ed Walters had the road shot encounter with the UFO. We're on Southside Shoreline Drive, and the green painted marker on the road is where Ed Walters actually saw the UFO, which was the famous road shot photograph. I'm standing just about where he photographed the object from, and it's pretty well marked. Somebody's been out here and painted this on the road now, and we're just going to go and have a close-up of the painted mark and see what it looks like close up. Well, there's the painted mark on the road. That is where the UFO virtually sat on this piece of road. This little piece ends this video about the areas around Gulf Breeze and some of the things to see and the people to meet and what you could expect if you came to Gulf Breeze. Unfortunately, we have not had a sighting, so you know, I think the majority of the sightings tipped in 91 and 92, so you know, they seem to be fading out, even though they've had a flap now and then. It is just the odd nights now and some of the daytime sightings, which are spectacular.
There have been hundreds of UFO videos filmed over the years here. Many have not been released simply because of the negativity and stigma associated with the subject. There was also a smear campaign against Ed Walters, but even if you take him out of the equation, there are still hundreds of recorded UFO sightings. In 1996 we returned for the third time. I investigated my own UFO sighting, and there was no way it was the Pensacola beach ball tower as a few people have suggested. And would you believe it? The people who said I'd filmed the Pensacola beach ball tower have never been to Gulf Breeze. My own UFO investigation will follow, and another Gulf Breeze special to follow soon.